The great chamber of the Galactic Council was alive with light and noise. Hundreds of alien species filled the seats, their eyes fixed on the center where a single human representative stood alone. The chamber was carved from shining black stone, lined with glowing silver veins that pulsed like the heartbeat of the galaxy. At the center, high above the floor, the council judges sat in a circle, their thrones suspended in air, each figure wrapped in authority and power. Some had insect-like faces, some had scaled bodies, others floated in shimmering energy shells, but all of them shared one expression: suspicion toward the lone human. The representative's figure was small compared to the towering shapes around him, but his posture was straight, his eyes steady, his voice unshaken. He stood in a beam of pale light, as though under a spotlight of judgment. The chamber buzzed with whispers. From the balconies, alien voices rose in low hisses and sharp clicks. Words repeated again and again: dangerous, reckless, violent. For months the council had debated what to do about the new species called humanity, a race that had risen too quickly, advanced too far, and dared to challenge powers far older than themselves. Now, the trial had begun. The lead judge, a towering being with translucent wings, raised one long hand and the noise fell silent. His voice, deep and resonant, filled the chamber like rolling thunder. Humanity, he declared, stands accused of reckless aggression, of endangering the balance of the stars, of building weapons that even the council forbade. You claim survival. We see ambition. You claim defense. We see conquest. Today, the truth must be spoken. All eyes turned to the human. He took a slow breath. His words carried no anger, only calm resolve. We are not conquerors, he said. We are survivors. We fight only when pushed, we build only when threatened. But when survival demands action, humanity acts. That is our crime, and perhaps, our strength. Murmurs rippled across the chamber. Some of the alien delegates leaned forward, studying the human with sharp interest, while others recoiled as though his words carried hidden danger. A judge with a crystalline body spoke next. Her voice was sharp and cold like breaking glass. One ship, she said, the Horizon Dawn. A supercarrier larger than most fleets. It faced the armada of the Zyrith Dominion, and yet it did not fall. Instead, it defied all laws of physics, all strategies known. It turned the battle, and it humiliated an empire. Explain this, human. Explain how one ship outmaneuvered 1,000. The human did not answer immediately. Silence stretched across the hall. The audience leaned closer, waiting, hungry for the story. He looked up toward the judges and said softly, "Do you wish to know how the trial began, or how the battle was won?" The lead judge's wings trembled, catching the light. "Begin with the battle," he ordered. "For all else flows from it." Gasps spread through the balconies. Everyone had heard rumors. Some said the Horizon Dawn carried forbidden weapons. Some claimed it was guided by a machine mind beyond reason. Others whispered that the humans had made a pact with unknown powers. But no one knew the truth. Now, in this chamber, the truth would finally be revealed. The human's gaze swept the room. He spoke with the weight of memory, every word pulling the audience deeper. The Horizon Dawn was alone, he said. It faced a wall of ships that blotted out the stars. Their fleet came to crush our worlds, to strip us of freedom. We had no allies near, no fleets close enough to defend us. The carrier stood between extinction and survival. His words echoed in the chamber, and the silence that followed was heavy with curiosity and fear. An alien delegate burst out from the crowd, his voice a furious roar. Lies. The humans seek pity. No ship can move like that. No carrier can stand against an armada. You cheated the laws of war. Others shouted, some in agreement, others demanding silence. The chamber became a storm of voices until the lead judge raised his hand again, and the chaos froze. His eyes, dark pools of judgment, fixed on the human. If what you say is true, then prove it, he said. Tell us what happened. Tell us how your carrier moved like no other, how your people survived the impossible. Tell us, and let all here decide if humanity deserves a place among the stars, or a cage to hold its fire. The human closed his eyes for a brief second, as though reliving the battle in his mind. When he opened them, there was no fear in his face. Only the calm of one who has already walked through fire. Then listen, he said, his voice low but firm. I will tell you how the horizon dawn faced the storm. And I will tell you why humanity will never kneel. The chamber leaned forward as one, breaths held, hearts caught in suspense. The story was about to begin, and in that moment, every alien, every judge, every listener in the great hall felt the weight of history pressing down. Something was coming, something none of them could forget, and no one could stop. The chamber grew silent as the human began to speak, and his words painted the memory of that day. The light of distant stars filled the void, cold and merciless, as the supercarrier Horizon Dawn drifted alone at the edge of Zyrith-controlled space. It was humanity's pride, a ship so vast that entire cities could have fit inside its armored hull. Its towers of steel stretched like mountains, its engines glowed like suns, but against the darkness of the enemy it looked small, fragile, a lone fortress in an ocean of fire. Across the void, the Zyrith armada appeared, filling the horizon. Ship after ship broke through the black, their formations tight, their numbers overwhelming. They came in waves, heavy cruisers and battleships, carriers bristling with fighters, destroyers circling like wolves. The comms filled with alien laughter, a chorus of confidence. To them, one ship was nothing. To them, victory was already written. The alien commander's voice carried across the stars, calm but dripping with arrogance. Human vessel, he declared, you stand before the Dominion fleet. Surrender, and your lives may be spared. Resist, and you will be erased. One ship cannot fight the weight of an empire. His words echoed not only across the Horizon Dawn's bridge but also through secret channels already monitored by the Galactic Council. For the Council, this battle was more than war. It was evidence. Humanity's every action would be judged. On the bridge of the Horizon Dawn, Captain Elias Varon stood firm. His crew worked with quiet determination, eyes moving across glowing displays, hands steady despite the mountain of death facing them. The captain's voice was calm, almost cold, but each word carried the fire of command. Transmit reply, he ordered. Tell them humanity does not surrender. Not to numbers. Not to fear. Not today. The calm officer obeyed, and silence followed. Across the enemy fleet, the alien commander chuckled, amused by such bold defiance. Then so be it, he hissed. Burn with the stars. The first wave came like a storm. Alien cannons lit the void, their beams cutting through space in blazing arcs. Missiles streaked forward, hundreds at a time, leaving burning trails behind them. Fighters swarmed like insects, filling the gaps between the giant ships. Against this wall of fire, the Horizon Dawn seemed slow, vulnerable, too massive to evade, too alone to stand. On the Council's viewing chambers far away, Alien delegates whispered to one another, convinced this would be humanity's last moment, the proof of their recklessness. Some leaned back, certain that the trial was already over, that soon the humans would beg for mercy. Yet the horizon dawn did not break. Its shields flared bright, wrapping the ship in glowing light. The first blast struck like hammers against an unyielding wall, shaking decks, making metal scream, but still the ship held. Explosions lit up the void, each one a reminder that death was coming closer, yet the carrier did not return fire. It waited. It endured. The alien commander grew impatient. "Fight back," he mocked, "or fall. Why do you not strike? Why do you hide behind shields?" On the bridge, Captain Elias studied the chaos with sharp eyes. His crew looked to him, waiting, hearts pounding. At last he spoke, his voice low but carrying across the room. "Not yet. Let them believe we are slow. Let them believe we cannot move. Hold the line. Watch." His words carried weight, and though fear gnawed at them, the crew obeyed. They waited as the enemy closed in, tightening the noose, drawing closer with every second. From the council chamber, the judges leaned forward. Their eyes narrowed as they studied the memory unfolding. One of them muttered, "This is folly. They are delaying the inevitable." But another whispered, "No. There is something here. Watch the human's eyes. He is waiting for something." The battle raged on. Wave after wave of fire hammered the horizon dawn. Hull plates groaned, alarms screamed, lights flickered, yet the giant ship held its ground. The enemy tightened their circle, confident the kill was close. The alien commander sneered, his fleet now surrounding the human carrier like predators circling prey. "Now you will learn," he snarled, "that resistance only brings pain." But the horizon dawn finally stirred. Engines that had been burning low suddenly roared alive, brighter than before. Hidden thrusters along the ship's flanks ignited, revealing arrays the enemy had not expected, arrays they had never even imagined could exist on a vessel so large. The carrier tilted, turned, and in one impossible movement, it slipped between the arcs of enemy fire as though it were not a fortress but a dancer. The alien crews froze in disbelief. Their laughter died in their throats. The council chamber erupted in gasps. A voice rang out, shocked and fearful, "That is no carrier. That is something else entirely." The human paused his story in the council chamber, his eyes scanning the silent audience. His voice dropped lower, forcing them to lean closer to hear. "They believed size meant slowness," he said. "They believed mass meant weakness. But they did not understand. Humanity builds not only with strength but with desperation. We bend the impossible because we must." And on that day, the horizon dawn began to move in ways no alien ever thought possible. The chamber shook with whispers, some voices full of awe, others full of anger. The trial had begun with certainty, but now doubt had entered. The council had wanted evidence of recklessness, yet what they were hearing sounded like brilliance, a kind of genius born from the edge of survival. The lead judge leaned forward, his voice deep and sharp. "Continue," he said. "Show us what happened when the impossible became real." And the human did. The council chamber was silent, every eye fixed on the lone human as his voice carried the story forward. The memory of the horizon dawn's first movements played like fire across the imagination of all who listened. A supercarrier was never meant to turn so quickly, never meant to glide through crossfire like a predator through shadows. Yet the horizon dawn did. Its colossal body twisted with a grace that defied all design, and the alien fleet realized, far too late, that this was no ordinary ship. Panic rippled across enemy comms. Orders were shouted in different tongues, curses spat, disbelief flooding their voices. The alien commander's comm mask cracked, his hiss sharp with anger. "Impossible," he barked. "No vessel that size can move like this. Adjust fire. Box them in. Crush them now." The next wave of fire tore across space. Beams of searing light lashed out, slicing the dark void. Missiles roared forward in clusters, leaving glowing trails behind them like falling stars. Fighters dived in swarms, their wings slicing through blackness, engines screaming. To the watching council, it looked certain that the Horizon Dawn would finally be overwhelmed. The enemy had filled the sky, every escape path sealed, every turn predicted. But what they did not know was that the carrier's captain had been planning this moment long before the first shot was ever fired. On the bridge, Captain Elias Varon stood steady, his face calm, his hands clasped behind his back. He had studied the enemy fleet as a chess master studies the board, and now the pieces were moving exactly as he wished. "Helm," he said in a quiet voice, "roll her 90 degrees, execute drift maneuver on my mark. Engines to half. All secondary thrusters prepare." His crew obeyed without hesitation, their trust unshaken even as death pressed close. The ship tilted, giant thrusters igniting in perfect rhythm. To the aliens, it looked as though the Horizon Dawn was falling into their trap. But then, with a sudden surge, the carrier slid sideways, dodging fire in a way that seemed unnatural for a ship of its size. Missiles that should have struck hull passed harmlessly into the void. Beams meant to cut steel instead lit up empty space. Fighters overshot their target, forced to spin back in confusion. Gasps filled the council chamber as the image of the maneuver was projected in their minds. Some alien delegates rose to their feet, pointing, shouting. "Trickery," one cried. "No carrier can move like that without breaking apart." Another hissed, "They must have used forbidden tech. It is impossible." But the human ignored them. His story continued, his voice calm, his tone even. The Horizon Dawn was built not to impress, not to boast, but to survive. Humanity designed her with hidden thruster arrays, systems that no alien engineer thought worth the risk. We knew one day we would face enemies greater than ourselves. We built for that day, and it came. The alien fleet tried to recover, their formation bending and twisting, but chaos spread. Ships fired at where they thought the Horizon Dawn would be, but it was never there. The supercarrier danced through gaps that should not have existed, weaving between torrents of fire with impossible timing. It was too big, too obvious, yet somehow always just beyond reach. On board enemy vessels, panic turned to anger. Captains screamed for more fire, for more pressure, for the human ship to finally fall. Yet with every desperate order, their weapons struck one another. A Zyrith destroyer fired a broadside meant for the Horizon Dawn, but the carrier twisted, and the beam carved across the shields of a Zyrith cruiser instead. Another ship launched a spread of missiles, only for the human vessel to slip past at the last second, leaving the deadly swarm to crash into friendly hulls. One by one, small explosions flared, not from the carrier, but from the alien fleet itself. The council delegates could hardly believe it. What had begun as a battle of overwhelming numbers was turning into a storm of confusion, where the strongest fleet in the sector was tearing itself apart. The lead judge leaned forward, his expression unreadable, but his voice tied with suspicion. "You claim this was skill," he said to the human. "But what of the cost? No ship moves like this without burning through its own strength. What price did your carrier pay to survive?" The human's eyes narrowed, but he did not look away. His voice remained steady. The price was heavy. Shields cracked. Hull was scarred. Every second was borrowed time. But we endured because we had no choice. The Horizon Dawn was not fighting to win glory. It was fighting to protect lives, to buy hours for colonies far behind us. Hours that meant survival. His words sank into the chamber like iron, and for a moment no one spoke. Even those who hated humanity could not deny the power of desperation, the strength of a species that fought not for conquest but to keep its children alive. Back in the memory of battle, the alien commander's fury boiled over. His fleet was bleeding, his captains disorganized, and yet still the human carrier lived. His voice roared across the comms, filled with rage. Enough games. Crush them. Close in, all ships. Surround them and fire until nothing remains. No tricks will save them this time. Across the battlefield, massive ships turned, engines flaring bright. The circle began to close, tighter and tighter, until it seemed the Horizon Dawn had nowhere left to go. On the bridge, Captain Elias watched the trap form with calm eyes. His crew looked to him, fear rising in their throats. "Captain," one officer whispered, "we are surrounded." "Orders." The captain let the silence linger. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Orders. Let them think they've won. Because now, the real trap begins." The chamber of the council was heavy with silence as the human continued. His voice carried no pride, only memory, yet every word struck like a blade. The image of the Horizon Dawn's battle returned to their minds, clear as if they themselves stood on its bridge. The Zyrith fleet had tightened the noose. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, all of them closed in until the black void itself seemed to vanish under their firepower. From every direction, the Horizon Dawn was locked, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The alien commander's laugh echoed through comms, sharp and cruel. "Now it ends. One carrier cannot escape this. Humanity will burn with its arrogance." His words carried across the council chamber as well, for many had already heard the recordings. Some of the alien judges nodded, convinced the end was near. Yet the human's eyes held steady as he spoke. That is what they believed. That is what they all believed. But belief does not stop desperation. Belief does not stop survival. On the bridge of the Horizon Dawn, the crew braced themselves as alarms screamed and the walls trembled. Shields flickered under the constant storm, metal plates glowed red-hot, smoke filled the edges of the room. Fear pressed on every heart, but Captain Elias stood unmoved, his voice calm as a whisper, sharp as steel. "Execute pattern Nemesis," he ordered. At once, his crew came alive, hands racing across glowing consoles, thrusters roaring to life. The massive carrier tilted on its axis, sliding through fire that should have crushed it. It twisted between beams, it ducked under volleys of missiles, it spun its colossal body like a predator weaving between blades. To the Zyrith it looked insane, impossible, as though the very laws of movement had been rewritten. "Keep pressure," their commander shouted, but confusion spread. "Where is it? Target lost. Adjust fire. They're moving too fast." Their voices filled with fear, their discipline breaking apart. The Horizon Dawn was not merely dodging. It was leading. Each maneuver pulled the Zyrith ships closer, each dodge tricked them into firing at angles they should never have taken. A destroyer loosed a storm of plasma bolts, but the carrier slipped just a fraction lower, and the bolts slammed into a friendly cruiser instead. Fighters screamed as they tried to adjust, but the supercarrier's hidden thrusters spun it in ways no training manual had prepared for, dragging squadrons into their own allies' lines of fire. The void lit up with accidental explosions, blossoms of fire tearing through Zyrith hulls. The council chamber erupted in gasps as the scene played in their minds, alien delegates rising to their feet in disbelief. "No," one hissed, "this is trickery, it cannot be real." Another spat, "That is not maneuver, that is madness." But the human's voice never rose, never fell. It was steady, like a storyteller guiding them deeper into truth. "Madness," he said, "is what survival looks like when all other choices are gone." As the Horizon Dawn twisted through the chaos, its trap began to snap shut. The Zyrith fleet had closed too tightly, their ships crowding together, their weapons firing at every shadow the carrier left behind. The human captain had drawn them in, pulled them closer, until the vast armada had no room to breathe. Their formation, once perfect, was now a storm of disorder. The alien commander realized too late, his voice shrieking with anger. "Pull back. Spread out." But orders meant nothing when panic ruled. Ships collided in their desperate attempts to escape. Beams meant for the Horizon Dawn ripped apart their own ranks. The carrier's every move turned their numbers against them. On the bridge, sweat ran down the faces of the crew, the weight of the moment pressing hard. The carrier shook violently as another wave of fire struck, but still it endured. The captain's voice cut through the chaos, calm and cold. "Fire now," he ordered. For the first time, the Horizon Dawn returned fire. Its colossal batteries roared, its missile bays opened, its rail cannons thundered. The blasts tore into the already panicked Zyrith ships, cutting them down with precision. Each shot was not random, but guided, aimed at the weakest, the ones already crippled by their own allies' mistakes. The void blazed with destruction, and for the first time, the Zyrith fleet felt fear. The council chamber boiled with shouts. Some aliens stood in awe, others in fury. "This cannot be skill alone," one cried. "No species should move ships like this." Another judge leaned forward, his voice heavy with suspicion. "Or perhaps," he said, "this is the proof of what humanity is. They take what is impossible, and they make it real." The human at the center of the trial did not deny it. He only lifted his eyes toward the judges and spoke with quiet weight. "You call it impossible. We call it survival. And in survival, humanity does not bend. Humanity does not break. We endure, no matter the storm." Back in the memory, the Zyrith commander roared as more of his ships exploded in the chaos. He knew his fleet was turning against itself, that the trap had closed, but pride and fury drove him on. "All ships, converge. Destroy them at any cost." His voice was raw with desperation, his words more a scream than a command. Across the void, his fleet staggered to obey, pulling tighter, pressing harder, driving into the heart of the Horizon Dawn's trap. On the human carrier's bridge, Captain Elias whispered a single word. "Perfect." The council chamber was heavy with tension as the human's voice carried them deeper into the memory. The Horizon Dawn had sprung its trap, turning the Zyrith fleet against itself, but victory was still far away. The alien armada was vast, its weapons endless, and the carrier could not dance forever. Shields flickered like dying stars, their glow cracking under the weight of constant fire. Alarms screamed across the bridge, red lights flashing over smoke-filled consoles. Hull plates buckled, systems failed, and still the Zyrith pressed in. From every side came the storm, relentless and merciless, a wall of destruction too great to outrun. The council delegates leaned forward, their breaths caught, waiting for the moment when the human ship would finally break. On the bridge, Captain Elias stood tall though exhaustion lined his face. His crew moved with desperate precision, every second of survival earned by sweat and sacrifice. A console sparked and an officer cried out as fire ripped across the floor. Another shouted that sections of the carrier had gone dark, whole decks sealed off to keep air from venting into space. The shields cracked again, and this time the blow was so strong the entire ship shook like a wounded beast. "Captain, shields at 10%, a voice reported, fear hidden under forced calm. Hull breaches on 3 levels. We cannot take much more." Yet Elias's voice was steady. "We will take as much as we must. The dawn will hold." The alien commander's voice filled the comms again, his rage now mixed with cruel joy. "You are breaking. Your tricks end here. You will die, and your people will follow." His ships surged closer, their fire heavier than ever, their numbers still overwhelming. The Horizon Dawn tried to dodge, tried to weave, but every movement grew slower, every thruster strained to the edge. It was no longer a dance but a struggle, a desperate fight against the tide. Still, Elias's eyes were sharp, searching the void, waiting for something no one else could see. His crew did not ask, but they trusted, even as fear pressed their chests like iron. The council chamber filled with whispers. "They cannot win," one delegate muttered. "The ship is finished." Another hissed, "This proves their recklessness. They gambled with everything and lost." But not all agreed. Some leaned forward, eyes narrowing, sensing that something was hidden, something the human captain had not yet revealed. The lead judge spoke, his voice low but firm. "You claim this was survival, not arrogance. Then show us, human. Show us how you lived when death was certain." The memory sharpened again. The Horizon Dawn drifted toward a belt of shattered rocks, a graveyard of asteroids circling a broken moon. The alien commander laughed when he saw it. "Foolish," he sneered. "You think to hide among stones. You think rocks will save you from a fleet." His ships followed without hesitation, confident the final blow was near. But on the bridge of the Horizon Dawn, Elias's eyes burned with a quiet fire. He turned to his crew, his voice steady even as the ship shook around him. "This is where we hold them. Arm the drones. Detonate the mines. Prepare the gravity nets." The officers obeyed without question, their hands racing, their fear replaced by a grim determination. The Horizon Dawn vanished into the asteroid field, weaving between tumbling rocks as though it had been waiting for this moment. The massive Zyrith fleet followed, their numbers pressing close, their formation breaking as they entered the narrow passages between drifting stone. The asteroids' twisted paths, blocked lines of fire, forced the alien ships closer and closer together. It was then that the trap was sprung. Mines hidden among the rocks ignited, their blasts tearing through enemy shields. Drones released from the carrier darted between the asteroids, unleashing swarms of fire from angles no ship could defend. Gravity nets activated, dragging massive rocks into the path of oncoming ships, crushing hulls under the weight of stone older than time. The void exploded with chaos. Alien ships collided in the narrow space, their weapons striking one another, their formations shattered beyond repair. The Horizon Dawn, though battered and scarred, moved with purpose, striking only when the moment was right, each shot cutting down the crippled and the trapped. On the council floor, gasps turned into shouts. Some delegates rose in anger, others in awe, their voices clashing like storms. "Madness," one cried. "This is slaughter. Another shouted back, "No, this is brilliance. This is survival against the impossible." On the bridge of the alien flagship, their commander's fury broke into desperation. His voice cracked as he roared, "Pull back. Escape the field. Do not let them." His words were cut short as the Horizon Dawn fired one final strike, its rail cannons tearing through his shields, its drones swarming like fireflies of death. The flagship shook, twisted, and then, with a blinding explosion, it was gone. The heart of the Zyrith fleet was shattered. Back in the chamber, silence fell so heavy it was almost painful. The human paused, letting the weight of the moment linger over the council. His voice, when it returned, was quiet but strong. "We did not fight for conquest. We did not fight for power. We fought because no one else would stand for us. We fought because surrender meant death, not only for us but for every colony that depended on our stand." That was the turning point. That was when the Horizon Dawn proved what humanity is. The council delegates sat frozen, caught between awe and fear. Some whispered of respect, others of danger. The lead judge leaned forward, his eyes dark with thought. "You survived," he said. "But survival alone does not prove innocence. What came after, human? What came when the fire was done?" The human's gaze was calm, his words like iron. "What came after," he said, "was judgment. Not by us. By you." The chamber of the Galactic Council was silent when the human finished his tale. His voice faded into the vast space, leaving only the echo of the Horizon Dawn's desperate stand. The images of burning fleets and shattered ships still lingered in the minds of every alien present, as if they themselves had stood on that battlefield and felt the heat of destruction on their skin. The council judges sat in their hovering thrones, their faces unreadable, their silence heavy with judgment. Delegates from 100 worlds whispered fiercely among themselves. Some voices trembled with awe, speaking of courage and genius, while others hissed with fear, calling humanity reckless, dangerous, and uncontrolled. The great hall seemed to split in two, one side leaning toward admiration, the other toward condemnation. The lead judge rose, his tall figure glowing beneath the pale lights of the chamber. His wings spread wide, catching the radiance and casting long shadows across the walls. His voice was deep, a sound like thunder rolling through endless skies. "We have heard your account," he said, his eyes fixed on the human. "We have seen the proof of what your kind has done. One ship against 1,000. A carrier that should have been crushed, yet stood, and in standing, turned an empire's fleet into wreckage. Some call this brilliance. Some call this madness. Which is it, human? Do you believe your people are saviors, or destroyers?" The human representative stood in the circle of light, small against the vast chamber, yet unshaken. His voice carried calm strength as he answered. "We are neither saviors nor destroyers. We are survivors. We did not seek war with the Zyrith, but when war found us, we fought. Not for conquest, not for glory, but for the lives that would have been lost had we bowed our heads. You speak of fear, you speak of power, but you forget the truth. Humanity fights only when forced. Yet when forced, we fight with everything we have. That is who we are." Whispers rose into arguments. A delegate with silver skin shouted, "They are too dangerous. Today they survived. Tomorrow they will challenge us all." Another with insect-like limbs clicked angrily, "No species should hold such power. If one ship can defeat an empire's fleet, then what will 100 do?" Yet a voice from the far side of the chamber rose to answer. "You call them dangerous because they survived what none of us could. You call them reckless because they did not die. But should survival be a crime? Should ingenuity be punished? The chamber grew louder, the storm of voices rising like a tide. Some demanded restrictions, others demanded alliance. Some wanted humanity caged, others wanted them welcomed. Through it all, the human stood in silence, his eyes scanning the chaos, knowing that his people's fate balanced on every word spoken in that hall. The council judges conferred quietly, their voices hidden, their eyes never leaving the human. At last, the lead judge raised his hand and the hall fell silent once more. His gaze was sharp, his tone heavy with the weight of decision. Humanity, he declared, has shown strength that defies limits. They have turned the impossible into survival. They have proven will where others would have fallen. But strength without restraint is danger. Will without control is threat. Today, this council must decide, are these humans a people worthy of place among the stars, or are they a fire that must be contained before it spreads? His words echoed across the chamber, and the silence that followed was heavier than steel. The human lifted his chin, meeting the gaze of every judge, every delegate, every enemy, and every ally in that hall. His words came slow, steady, filled with quiet defiance. "Judge us as you will," he said. "But remember this: humanity is not what you fear. Humanity is what you will face when fear comes for you. When the storm arrives, when the darkness rises, we will not kneel. We will not break. And you will remember the horizon dawn." The hall remained frozen, the judges silent, the verdict unspoken. The council chamber, filled with the voices of countless species, seemed to hold its breath. Would they condemn humanity to chains, or would they acknowledge them as equals? No one could tell. All that remained was the weight of uncertainty, the echo of survival, and the memory of a single ship that had outmaneuvered an empire. And as the session closed, as the lights dimmed and the human representative was led from the chamber, one truth lingered in every mind. Whether the council declared them ally or enemy, humanity had already earned something more powerful than judgment. They had earned fear and respect.